All right, this is a longer discussion for you and me to have beers.
Yeah.
I think I disagree with you on this one.
Yeah.
But
around
anyways,
the
We
deals.
identified our disagreement
okay.
for further
Yep.
conversation.
Okay. We're going to hang out in London and we're going to have a lot of discussions around this.
I can't wait for that one.
I'm looking forward to it so much, man. All right. Takeaway time. Tim, take us away because you need to head to the airport soon.
I do. I gotta leave. So we started off with, how do you make model once and represent everywhere? Like, how do you do that? And at Netflix, Alex, you and your team pioneered the unified data architecture, and in particular, Upper, with a knowledge graph approach to manage all of this. And you started by saying it's a big question. Starting at Netflix, there were data models everywhere, lots of different systems where data was being stored. You had a big data products and data mesh initiative, which obviously really took hold in various places. Overall, a lot of information, lots of different places, not a lot of unification around semantics, and a lot of integration patterns going all over the place, right? It makes it very hard to reason about. And you wanted to ask that question, maybe with Lord of the Rings in mind a little bit. What is the one schema to rule them all? And with that question came this unified data architecture. And even though you didn't start off this way, it ended up that what you were building was a knowledge graph, right? And you said there are three main components: domain models, mappings, and data containers that together makes up this architecture. And then, Juan's actually done a lot of writing around this and diagrams and things like this. You've been talking, Juan, about business metadata, mapping metadata, and technical metadata, or the data metadata, right? So it's interesting to see some of the parallels here between these different things. And interestingly, you're not making distinctions between data and metadata. You're thinking of them all being data, essentially, right, that can be leveraged as part of this. And what's the value of the unified data model? You are really driving the value in two main areas with two main applications. One is around taxonomy management with the PDM, primary data management capabilities. And then Sphere, which is more around business users interacting with and contributing to their domain, and then trying to use conceptual needs. And in my mind, I almost thought about use cases, right? Like trying to use the use case and the business value as more the driver on how you want to interact with the right data for what it is that you're trying to do. And why not this versus something else? Most companies are just modeling on top of the data warehouse. So obviously, Netflix has a much more varied data architecture in terms of modality, in terms of streaming versus batch, in motion versus at rest. That's, I think, increasingly becoming true for pretty much all companies now. GraphQL was a great original bet, but it's not good at conceptual modeling. It's good at federating. In general, the conceptual layer was missing, right? And so that's why this came into play. Juan, what about you?
Yeah, so we got a lot into how, and I think Upper is this big, the upper part, which is like, it's the self-describing governance of what is really going to be managing all these different domain models. All these domain models themselves are governed by Upper itself, but it's that self-describing and governance. You have, again, a lot of shackle validations, which are just kind of the validations over the shapes of the graph of how everything is done. And that's how you're self-describing and governing these. And you're being able to get a broader set of folks to contribute all these data domain models. I mean, you could listen to the part where you're saying how anybody can come in and start contributing to these domain models. Upper, right, lets you flexibly and simply model things like concepts and relationships and attributes to define what are keys and so forth, and making that federation a core concept from the beginning. Like, that was really important. So there's a recognition that central data governance doesn't scale. And I love how I said, I quote, "We're not in the business of telling you what to do." We'll discuss like why no one else is doing this, like why now, and what's made the change. One, it's interesting. You said like, starting off with the term ontology was so overwhelming, and just changing it to domain model actually makes a huge difference right there. And at the end of the day, it was a big investment that really nobody had done, and I think you all took the risk around doing it because you knew it was like the right thing. But can we do it? And you made that investment. You realize you can do it, and you're seeing all this value out of that. We also talked about what does it take to get folks kind of accepting all the RDF and these semantic web concepts? And he said, well, it's an implementation detail, right? You're not going off and telling everybody that this is RDF around it. I mean, the devil's in the details in there when you need to go know about that. They're focused on the conceptual RDF as you democratize it, but then you have all of these different kind of, at the end, you're trying to say, that's underneath the hood, and you can be able to go get out the particular schemas or the Java code that you need, and that's what people care about. And why RDF? Because at the end of the day, you really want to be able to pick a conceptual framework that enables you to reason about a particular domain. What does AI have to do with this? you're very blunt and direct. AI is often just a distraction. At the end of the day, the prize is helping internal data movement and having this unified semantic understanding and operability. The semantic foundations and projections is what you really were focusing on. Authoring is something that is being focused on next, how to do things visually, discovery, user experiences. There's a big area of interest around subgraph composition, business rule validations. At the end, all of this started off because you wanted to get that one schema. The problem statement being, we have so many schemas, we don't have a way to reason over all of these schemas. And that's how this all started. There's a lot more details that we missed here, but how did we do? Anything we missed?
I think that was great. Yeah, that's pretty much UDA.
All right. Well, to wrap up,
and folks should check out Alex's Medium article. I think it's a really great in-depth approach to this.
And also to remind people, this was not this was years of work. So and a lot of people.
Yeah.
And to wrap
quite
up,
a few people. Yeah.